So in this video, we're going to be looking at knife skills. And the first thing that's really, really important is how you set yourself up. How do you set your table up? How do you become organised? So we've got a selection of equipment that we need fundamentally to chop an onion. So we're going to put the onion to the side just for a moment. So what we need essentially is we need knives. I'm right-handed, so I keep everything that I need that I'm going to use knife-wise on the right-hand side. You know, we need a little bowl for some waste, and this bowl can be used between a table of 4. So you only need one bowl, so it saves you going back and forward and touching the bin every time. We need somewhere to put our product that we're going to be working with, and somewhere where it's going. So I'm using a tray today, but that could really be anything depending on the job, and I keep that on the left-hand side. We've got our chopping board, and the important thing is with our chopping board, as you can see, kind of slides about. You have to secure it. So we've got a little board mat here, and that just secures the board. The other thing that's important is leaving a gap. So we're looking at about 3 or 4 centimetre gap from the edge of your board to the edge of the table. And the reason for that is that when you're chopping, you always have little bits and bobs falling off the board. You don't want that falling onto the floor. So we've got our knives. We've got where our product would be, where we're working from, our waste, and we've got where it's going to go. So we're going to be chopping an onion. We're going to be finely chopping and slicing and showing you both those different skills. So we've got our onion. The first thing we have to do with this is to wash it. So we've brought our vegetables, or in this case it's an onion, and it's really, really important that we wash anything that we're going to chop, particularly root veg and things that have been grown in the ground, because they are covered in dirt, and you don't want to contaminate your chopping board. So always take it to the sink, always use a colander. The other really important factor is that once you've washed your vegetables, and the chances are you're washing quite a lot of different veggies at the same time, when you're going back to your table, it's vital that you pop it onto a tray and carry it so that you're not creating a hazard on the floor by dripping water, because it can become really slidey. So always make sure you go back to your bench with a tray and your colander and your food items. So we've washed the onion, and we've brought it back in the colander on the tray so that we don't drip water on the floor. The next thing we want to do is to peel it. And this is where I think a lot of people go wrong with an onion. They get mixed up with what end it should be kept on. Fundamentally, the onion's got the stalk, which is normally the longer bit, and the root. The root is what we want to keep on, which is going to help us later on when we chop the onion. The stalk is something we don't need. But what we want to do is to try and, when we take the stalk off, that we don't take off too much onion. Again, if you cut too much of it away, it's just a waste of food. Another important thing is as well, is when you're peeling an onion, it's never halved in the skin. It's always peeled as a whole onion. So we've got our little waste bowl. Again, a little knife might help, just depends on the onion. There's just one more layer needs to go. So, and we're left with that. The root that is left on, it's essential that we keep the root, but what we want to do is to remove the little piece of root that's been exposed to the ground. And we do that just by spinning the onion and just gently turning that against the edge of a small knife. And that just removes the onion that's been exposed to the ground, because we don't want that contaminating any of the product. that we're going to use to cook with. Our next job is to get back to the sink and we re-wash. So we always wash, peel and re-wash. So we've re-washed the onion. We're now ready to cut. So what we want to do, we're going to slice half this onion and we're going to chop the other half, or vice versa. We're going to chop then slice. So what we want to do is we want to cut the onion in half. But we have to be careful that you cut the onion the correct way. I have seen people cutting through the circumference, which gives you like rings, which doesn't really work for dicing. The easiest way is to just find where the root is and take your knife and cut the onion in half through the root so that both parts of the onion are the exact same. The chances are you're sharing an onion with someone else, so make sure that they get a bit of that root as well. So we'll put half to one side at the moment. So we've got our half onion. Again, we're keeping in a organised manner. You know, our knife's on the right hand side, we've left the gap, we've got somewhere to put our chopped items, and we've got a little waste bowl. So it's important that you keep tidy. You know, and this organisation is really just habit. You know, it's a good habit, and it's just as easy to have a good habit as a bad habit. So with our onion, we want to finely dice the onion. The proper way of dicing a chef or a cook dices is they use their left hand a lot in that process. The left hand is fundamentally controlling where the knife is, and it might seem strange at first, but you're in contact with that blade the whole time that you're using it, and that tends to be the safest way. And it does take a little bit of practice, but the technique to do it is the easiest way I found to learn was to put my hand flat on the board, put your hand against your fingers and push up towards your hand. And what you're looking for is this little knuckle here, this first little knuckle to be exposed, and then the knife then goes against that knuckle. You need to keep your pinky out the way and you need to keep your thumb out the way. But that is technically the technique. The other thing with your right hand and the knife is the cutting technique. We never ever want to go choppy. And I know you see them on the TV doing all that, but it's the wrong technique. Another important thing is when you're starting out is just to take your time. You know, the speed comes with the experience, but technique takes time to learn. So once you get the technique, the speed's secondary to that. So our knife, the knife's curved in such a way that it's beneficial to be used almost like a slice, and you're almost slicing everything that you do. You've never ever just go straight through. So there's a couple of motions. You can go forward or you can pull back, and it just depends on what you're cutting, depends on what technique you use. Other things to avoid is the finger on the top of the knife. Okay, so if you're using a knife a lot, you will cause your hand problems, and it will be quite sore. So fingers down, push up, expose the little knuckle, and the knife goes against that knuckle. So, and I'm going to show you that technique with the onion. And again, take your time, doesn't have to be fast. So we're using the knife and we're pulling through the onion, and the left hand's guiding where the knife goes. We're cutting through all the way to the board, but not all the way through the back of the onion. So it's nice and slow, take your time, even cuts. And because we kept the root on, you know, it's very stable. Okay. So the onion still got the root and is very stable. So it's then really easy to chop. You sometimes see a horizontal cut going through the onion. And, you know, again, I think most cookbooks will tell you to do that. I don't really feel the need, to be honest. If you've got really nice fine lines, what you'll find is the onion has got loads of layers in it anyway, and I've never really figured out why that horizontal line is there. It just unstabilizes the onion. So for me, particularly when you're starting out, I wouldn't do the horizontal line unless the onion's really big, you know, and it's got, you know, you've got the big end bits that haven't been sliced. But for this onion, we're going to leave it as it is. We then change our technique ever so slightly, so we're doing a push and motion and using the left hand, guiding where the knife goes, and we're running the knife through the onion to get a really nice fine dice. You will notice on my table there is a sharpening steel. Again, it's important that when you use a knife that the knife is sharp. It makes life much easier. So what you'll find is you've got the end bit. The end bit is important that we use it, and then we just change the technique ever so slightly and we run the knife through. And all we should be left with is that little half root. And then we just run the knife through that little end bit just a couple of times. But with the rest, you shouldn't really need to, because you've sliced it nice and thin. And then I always just give it one little run, just one little run, and it's more or less just to break that onion up. And that's our finely diced onion. And again, anything that fell off the board fell onto the table, so we can still use it and we're not having to pick it up off the floor. With the other half of the onion, I would like to show you sliced onion. So there's two different ways of slicing the onion. You notice we've got the root at the back and you've got these little kind of curves, sometimes called kind of rainbow sliced onions. If you have a look at that, I'll slice a couple of bits off. What you find with the onion cut like that you don't get two bits of onion the same. And for me, it's not a good cut. There is certain times you would cut like that if you want, you know, the product to really break down. But it's really, for me, it's not a good cut. It's too uneven and inconsistent. The correct way to do it is we're actually going to cut the root off because we don't want it to hold together. And then we take the onion and cut from the side and just run the knife through. Again, nice and slow. And you're always looking for the food to be on its flattest edge, so you might have to turn the onion round. And that, for me, gives you perfectly sliced onion. And that cut can be used for loads and loads of things. But more importantly, the product from start to finish is the same size. So we've got chopped onion and sliced onion.